All right, hello, welcome back. This is again Rafa with Mystic Times, and I have Emily Moyer here with me. We're going to continue with our fun conversation. We were checking a lot of maps and spatial anomalies, and seeing what role the continent of South America had in regards with the continent of Africa, and where different countries connect. It was pretty interesting. So yeah, how are you right now?
All right, good. I just went over and made myself a quick little matcha shot. I'm on like a fairly unusual diet right now. And so I'm actually not drinking coffee right now. And so I'm drinking green tea instead. So I have a little matcha and I make it in the little ceremony bowl with the whisk, the proper Japanese way or whatever. So I'm trying to convince myself that I like green tea as much as I like coffee, but that is a lie. I'm doing this like we were traveling a lot. Like I try to eat very healthy. I like to exercise. I like to experiment with my body and diet and whatnot. And I needed to do, like, we had been traveling quite a bit and doing a lot of socializing, and I never eat like junk food per se, like it's good food, but I was eating a lot of very decadent, lots of meals out, lots of cocktails with friends. And so I was wanting to do like a month or a cleanse for a period of time. And I didn't feel like just doing generally, like for the last couple of years when I've wanted to do that, I go to the carnivore diet, right? I eat mostly carnivore most of the time. But I like to eat out. I like fancy food. So I cycle, I am flexible. But I decided I didn't want to go to strict carnivore this time to cleanse. So I'm trying my friend Rob Stewart's diet. He's a guy who deals mostly with like skin health, but his diet is largely like animal based as well. So the first 2 weeks is like very restrictive. So like this is day 9 for me, only beef, goat butter, squash, lettuce, and berries. That's it. And then I have the green tea. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. And bone broth. Bone broth is part of beef, right? So there you go. So that's all I've been eating for 9 days. Hence butternut squash soup and chakros for dinner or whatever, right? So I'm pretending I like the matcha. It is good, but it's not coffee. I like coffee.
It's not the same. I've never been a fan of coffee. I've never resonated with it.
So I got into coffee, like when I was like a teenager, it like became like in the Starbucks became the big thing, like in Los Angeles in the 90s. So I got into going to Starbucks with my friends and the whatever. And then like a little later, I worked in some coffee places. So I got into it. And then I didn't drink coffee for like many, many years. And then I found myself when I was living downtown LA, living up on top of like a very gourmet craft coffee place where you could go and get crafted cup coffee, which is like, they just make your cup for you at a time. They ground a few beans. They do, they make it, it's like like the ceremonial matcha, but for the coffee kind of thing. And it's like wine tasting. They'll have these different roasts of different beans. You can taste the cherry, the this, the that, whatever. Right. And I got really into it for a while. And then I stopped drinking coffee again when I kind of got off drugs and got healthy and whatever. And then a couple of years ago, I got back into coffee again. I really like it, but I'm a huge coffee snob. Like I don't want to drink just the coffee from the 7-Eleven or whatever. Like I want the super fancy coffee, right? And I do all, I like a little heavy cream and a little, but I like to play with it. It's like the same, like the way you would taste whiskey or wine or whatever. I kind of like that. So
yeah, it seems that like there is this big like ceremonial or ritualistic thing around it. For some reason it's not my time. So I wanted to share. Okay, so another story.
Yeah.
So I was on the beach. Maybe I can. No, okay. I'll just tell you the story. I don't need to share screen. So I was on the beach again with my girlfriend, and we were just there, and suddenly in the sky we see, every now and then you see like small small planes coming by or whatever. But this time, and it's hard to describe it because it was a weird experience, a weird visual glitch or whatever. So this small plane was coming. So let's say that the beach is the water is in front of me, and so it's coming from my right. That would be like from the west. So the plane is coming, and there on the like from the side of my eye, from the side of my from my
corner of your eye, yeah, peripheral,
yeah, the corner of my eye, I see something that kind of registers in my mind as something strange, you know, and then it's getting closer, going like in front of me, in front of us. So and we both saw this one as well. So I look up, and when I'm looking at the thing, it kind of starts to shift and turns into a sort of kind of regular military looking airplane. So kind of like a jet, you know, of a sort. I don't think I've, not up close and like by itself. I don't think I've ever seen one like so close and on its own. So it goes by, and we don't talk about it in the moment because it just registered for both of us as something weird. Then when we were coming back,
what did you think it looked like at first before it changed into a military thing? What was the first assumption?
It was like a strange plane. I can't explain.
Okay, strange plane, and then it started to look normal. Okay, yeah.
It's like at the moment that I looked at it, it's as if, this is just a supposition from my part, but as if it knew that I was looking at it, and at that moment it started shifting. And so, you know, this kind of color, which in Spanish it's called tornasolado. So this type of color that, depending on the angle that you look at it from, it kind of changes a little bit, like from blue to green or whatever.
Yeah.
So it started coming and kind of shifting its appearance in that way. And I thought I saw, like on the tail of the plane, what seemed for me the Indian flag from India.
Okay.
So it's like there was no reason for an Indian military plane to be going by. And I think, you know, these kind of weird things, I think they have if we could call it a UFO part of the UFO thing, I think they have this ability to reflect something that's within you.
Yep.
Right. So like for me, I'm very into Indian philosophy and.
I was just gonna say the thing. Yeah.
So for me, it looked like that. For my girlfriend, it was different. What she saw, she didn't see the same details. Let's say, okay. So the situation for her, it was the same. I don't exactly remember how it was for her. I would ask her and tell you next time. But she also saw the same thing, like a kind of weird plane. For me, it was so long ago, and it's kind of hard to keep it in my memory. But it was something kind of like uniform in its color, so like silver or something like that, you could say. Or, you know, like this metal mercury, you know, how it's like very reflective and silver in color. So it was kind of like that, like the bad guy in Terminator, right? So it was kind of like that, and it shifted into a more normal looking plane. But at the same time, it was, even the second shape that it took, it was not the normal jet. We like started looking for different types of jets, and we couldn't find the one that we had seen. So it was very strange. Like, it was maybe a possibility, a very advanced kind of technology that can kind of meld or what's melt with the sky, and you can see it, right? And then for some reason it appeared and it showed itself. But the jet itself, you know, we've seen many different kinds of jets, like in movies, etc. And here every now and then they do like plane shows, and they, you know, that when they go several jets together and they cross the sky, and like they shoot some kind of smoke in colors or whatever from the back. So we have a little bit of idea of different jet planes, but this one was very different to anything we'd ever seen before.
Okay, so a couple of things. So I've had similar kind of experience before. I think this maybe is not a super common experience, but is common amongst people who are questioning reality, right? Kind of thing. So it made me think about cloaking technology, right? And there's a couple of different kinds of cloaking technology, right? So some cloaking technology would be like, we've all had this experience where like you see that something is drawing the chemtrail, but there's no plane. The chemtrail just seems to be coming out of nowhere, right? So the options are that the plane is cloaked, right? The plane is being cloaked, or that the sky is really a computer screen and someone has a pen and drawing the white line on there. I think they're equally possible, either one. I am not at all certain anymore of what the fuck this is we're living in. Okay. So there's that. But then there's also, as you were talking, I was thinking about one technology that I, researched a number of years back, and it's a kind of paint that you can paint a plane with it's a cloaking technology, and it's a paint that bends light, right? And so I went to look up if I could find what I was thinking of. What did I just do? And so I found a couple of things. So there's here's one: quantum stealth invisibility cloak can conceal people. This is the one: aircraft paint, right? Nanotechnology invisibility cloak. So there's certain kinds, like the nano paint could make it so a radar wouldn't be able to pick it up, right? But some of these are just light bending, sun and fun, right? So the way it looks. So my guess would be that, there's, I don't know how all of this stuff works. Like you can look at all of these articles are all about what we're talking about here, right? Different kinds of airplanes that have this cloaked paint on it or whatnot. Now, I don't know if that's deployed. It's just the paint is very simple and does it itself, or they're also having to deploy a frequency field or an energy or some kind of like Wi-Fi router. I don't know. My guess would be that when they're flying over unpopulated areas, they may feel they don't have to cloak. But when they start to go over an area where there's a lot more people, they don't want that to be seen, right? So they can deploy whatever the activating part of the technology is. And then, that makes it look like the regular plane. The other option, and because of what else you said, is I do think that there are conscious technologies that interact with our mind. And I don't know if it's like an advanced computerized kind of technology, or if there's actually certain kinds of reflective surfaces that can do something with our consciousness. So basically, like you see something that doesn't make sense to you, but the idea is to make you feel comfortable with it so you're not concerned. And so you see like the Indian flag, right? Because you have a very fond place in your heart for India. You're like, okay, well, if India's invading, that's better than if Russia or whatever is fucking invading, right? Like at least they'll invade with yoga and yantras and these things I like, right? Okay. So, and your girlfriend saw something else. So I don't know what kind of technology this is. If this is actually like a computerized technology on their end, or if this reflective surface creates like a mind-bending thing that makes you think you're seeing something and that there's not really anything that they have to do to try and control your mind. It just naturally does it. It's like holding up a mirror, like you see what you're thinking about, or you see what's buried in that part of your third eye, because you do a lot of meditation. My guess would be you have a lot of like Indian teachers or scripts or books you follow that have helped you to. So when you go into your third eye, it wouldn't be surprising to find Yogananda or some of these kinds of like people or whatever there, right? It wouldn't be surprising. So there's that. And then there's also the other thing that I'm thinking about is, have you heard, like the military deploys in the Middle East something they call the voice of God technology, right? And so it's basically like a voice to skull technology where you'll hear voices in your head, wow. Right? But they do it like when they do that in the Middle East, they say something that Allah would have said, so that they're trying to get the Middle Eastern fighters to put down their arms or to surrender. And so they would say something, they would program a voice into it that would say, some line from a prayer or some line for the holy book, then the soldier will think that God is talking to them and lay down their arms. So if they have auditory technologies like that, they would probably also have visual technologies like that, right? Where like we want the people to be pacified. And it may not even be from a military standpoint, but it's like, all right, the people are out having a nice day on the beach in Montevideo. We don't want them to understand that we're surveilling their every activities. So if someone happens to look up and see it and catch us without our cloak on, it's going to reflect back something with them that they're comfortable with. So they're not having like this moment of, oh my God, like we're being surveilled or invaded or whatever, right? So there's that. And then there's also like, I don't know enough about particle physics to get into this and how it like particle beam technology, how that can interface with consciousness. But like at one point several years ago, and this was before I got off drugs or anything, but it was when I was in a very expansive mental time because it was right on the edge of like when I was about to sort of clean my life up.
Let me just interject something. You have the double slit experiment, you know about
right.
it. So
yeah.
You shoot particles and depending on the observer, I remember doing that in high school and
right.
it blew my mind. But
right.
there you have it, particles connected to or influenced by consciousness.
So I started having this idea that it was possible that they were using the consciousness of certain humans to pilot the planes that were making the chemtrails, right? Like that this would, I don't know where this idea occurred to me. I have lots of weird ideas, but my thoughts about it were that just kind of like, this would be something that they would do because they like to get everybody to participate in their bullshit, whatever, right? But also like the pollution of your airspace would match exactly the pollution of your mind. So however clouded and foggy and full of bullshit your mind was, that's how full of chemicals and whatever the sky was going to be. And at that time, my mind was polluted with all sorts of chemicals. So I would be a great pilot for the chemtrail planes because I was busy literally making chemtrails in my bedroom with smoking meth and whatever. You blow it out, it looks like a fucking chemtrail, right? So I was like making my own. But one day, so I had that thought. And then one day I was in the vet's office, right? And the vet had asked me like what I did over the weekend or something like that, right? Not the vet, the secretary. So I was telling her I'd been to this festival on an Indian reservation in the La Jolla, which is like down near San Diego, right? And I was telling her about it and she was asking me about the dancing and I was telling her about how I like to close my eyes when I dance and like I see things and I was drawing a picture of her. I drew a little picture for her of something that I saw behind my eyes. When I left the vet's office, I looked up in the sky. There was a chemtrail in the sky right above the office, the exact same design that I had drawn for her. Right? So what is really going on here, right? Like it's hard to, this gets into when I talk about, like, I think a lot of the things that we're told are the space program are actually the brain mapping program, particularly the secret space program. If you remember, like during the time Obama was president, there was a lot of talk about him raising a lot of funds for the brain mapping program, right? And, the sort of inside of our head or the inside of our mind is very much equated with the top of the dome of whatever we're living in here, right? Whatever snow globe we're in, like your dome is your dome. And so these things all go together with what you're talking about, right? Like we look up and we see something moving through the sky. And if it's at a certain height, we think it's a bird. So we see a bird, whether it's a bird or not, right? Of course, I've been following this. I don't know if you've heard any of the stuff I've done about this whole birds aren't real thing, right? But that's a fascinating thing to start to dissect as well, right?
I was in a park one day listening to you and Michael, I believe, talking about that. And I was sitting on this native tree, which is called an ombu. So I was sitting on this, it's a very big tree. I was sitting on this tree, listening to you guys, and you started talking about that. And suddenly lots and lots of, I think it's sparrows, the brown small ones. Yeah. Many of them started coming close and close, and I was laughing my ass off. And they started like, they have this behavior. they like shake on the dirt. And I don't know, I guess they put dirt on their wings for some reason, I don't know, or they clean themselves or something. And they all started doing that, and they were getting closer and closer and closer.
Yeah. So when we see something flying in the sky at a certain height, we think it's a bird. So whether it's a bird or not, we're seeing a bird because the only thing you and I expect to see in the sky is a bird, maybe a kite or a balloon. That's it, right? At a certain height. And then above that, we're either seeing a helicopter or an airplane, right? And so because from the time we're little, think how when you're like little, you're 3 or 4, your grandfather takes you to the park, look at the airplanes, right? And so he doesn't tell you to like, look at the cars or look at the, flowers in the sky, look at the airplanes. If you're looking in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, or it's Superman, and there's not much else that it's going to be, right? So I wonder how much we are how much of what we think we see, that's not really what we're seeing. It's just our mind superimposes what we expect to see on top of that. The other thing that is quite odd, and I'm sure you've seen some of these videos going around on the internet, is like people showing like a bird just stopped in the middle of the air to see if it stopped, or even a plane. That happened to me. One day I'm driving in my own neighborhood in Los Angeles. I live pretty close to a small airport. So Los Angeles has several airports, right? There's like the international airport is LAX, but then there's like Long Beach Airport and Burbank, but there's a small airport that is just for like cargo and like private planes and stuff in Van Nuys, very close to where I live. And I'm driving through my neighborhood and I look up and I see what looks like a regular airplane, but I notice it's just not moving. It's just staying for like a long time. And then all of a sudden the same thing, when it recognized that I was looking at it, so there does seem to be some aspect to this technology that is like you said, a double split experiment. Once it's aware it's being observed, then it changes behavior. I have this weird thing. I don't know if you hear any of the shows like I do with Nish, but like I see blue lights in my apartment. Like I can look ahead straight. It's like sometimes I will see a blue light right ahead of me, right? Like on the wall, not in any area where it could be reflecting some blue light in my house. And as soon as I'll see it, and then as soon as I lock my eyes on it, it disappears, right? And the question is like, is this some sort of technology that is like self-aware and is doing something, but as soon as it's noticed, it recedes? Or is it coming from inside of me? And the moment I recognize it, like it gets shut down. Is there something being projected? Like, am I some sort of cyborg or some kind of thing from the Terminator? Like, I don't know. Like we all go around assuming we're like very afraid that like we're going to be taken over by AI or Bill Gates is going to put something in us and we're going to turn into robots. And we assume that that's not already happened, right? I don't think it's happened, but when these things occur, I start to ask myself, right? Like even the same thing, you like to go out in nature, right? Like if you start to look closely at the bugs, especially the bugs. You look at the bugs, you look at the plants, you look at the trees. Some of them look like little machines. They look like some earlier form of technology, right? And I have talked about it many times, so I'm not going to repeat myself here, but like I had the conversation when I was on mushrooms with the trees in my backyard, and they were telling us that they're like, they're also technology, just like the 5G tower, but they're better looking and they do more cool things than right? They had that conversation with me that they're a technology. They produce oxygen. It's like an air cooler or whatever, right? Like they're producing air for us to breathe, right? And they also act as like a transmitter, like they do a lot of the same things that the 5G tower does. And we're all up and, oh no, we can't have 5G towers. Well, was there a time when we were like, oh shit, we can't have trees because they're doing, it just, you have to start to ask yourself these questions, right? So anyway, but that is an interesting experience. And that the most interesting part of it is that you guys saw two different things, right? And this also happens oftentimes in psychedelic experiences. Like, have you had psychedelic experiences?
Yeah.
A couple of them. Okay. So like some people, right? Obviously no one ever has the exact same, like when I'm with someone and we're tripping, like I can say, oh, I see this, and then explain it to them. And then they can be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I can see that too. But they weren't seeing it until I told them. But so you're not having the same trip, even though you're sort of in the same space. You can share some parts of it. But like a lot of times you'll take the same mushrooms or the same acid or the same whatever, And like maybe you will have some symbolism that is more typical to the part of the world you grow up in or where your ancestors are from. Like I often see things that are like incredibly like Egyptian or Middle Eastern looking, right? Someone else might see something Native American or more Celtic. I don't ever see like Celtic looking things, like, you know, so that can be even that experience that you think is happening in your own mind. It's trying to show it to you in a way that will make you feel the most comfortable or the most natural, so you can get it's the same information, right? So I may see a symbol, then I draw it, and it's some like Egyptian symbol. And you may say, oh, I saw a symbol too, but my symbol was different. And you draw some symbol that is like from whatever culture first lived in Uruguay or whatever, right? And then when we look up what those symbols mean, they mean the same thing, but they look different, right? So I think the unquantifiable aspect of consciousness tries to show you, give you information in the way that you're most likely to be able to receive it without rejecting it, right? So
I think that an important aspect of all of this that we tend to forget, or some people maybe haven't even come across the idea, but you know, from all the spiritual texts, one of the basic things is that the world is actually being projected from us.
mm-hmm.
And a kind of experience I had, or a kind of understanding or revelation, whatever I had once, it was also connected to trees. I had this understanding that when you're in nature, the surrounding, that is the space that is all around you, it's hard to put into words, but it's your soul. And you are when you're looking outside, you're actually looking at your soul. It's mm-hmm. very hard to how to put it. I mean, because or another aspect of the thing is that it's both at the same time. So it's something that is objective out there, which you can touch and you can sense and whatever. But at the same time, it's your inside. So again, the space is the inside of your head, the inside of your mind or whatever, which you are for some reason, because of how reality works, or the creation of reality from consciousness, which is who we really are before this identity and this meat, etc. All of this projects outward the part that we can't see because it's inside or in this other kind of dimension, which is the imagination, etc. So we are seeing a 3D projection or reflection, or 4D, perhaps if we think of time as well, projection of what's happening within us. And
yeah,
let me look for a quote as you say, give your thoughts on it.
So yeah, so like, you know, if you ever go, like, let's just say, like, maybe the way, you know, we don't understand what is going on largely, but like we have the content of our own mind, right? And we think that outside is this never-ending environment, right? But we're only actually in the space that we're in at this time. So have you ever been to like an observatory? You have an observatory there?
We have. I think I went when I was very small. I don't remember it.
Okay, so the one that I went to a lot when I was little, it is a very famous one in Los Angeles called the Griffith Park Observatory, right? So here, I'm going to show you. So this is the Griffith Park Observatory in Los Angeles. Beautiful. Okay, right? And so let's
makes me think of the Taj Mahal.
Yeah, it looks a little like the Taj Mahal, right? Also, if you look at it from up above, it looks like it could be some piece of technology, some kind of ancient technology, right? There's and so this you can see from here, you can see downtown Los Angeles from the Griffith Park Observatory, right? Okay. But you go, the main part where they do the shows or where you can watch the sky is the middle one, the big one right here. Okay. So let's just say that it looks like the same shape as our head, right? This looks like this. So when you go in there and you're either sitting in the seats, or sometimes they clear the seats out and you can lay on the floor and look up. You we're moving from space to, like, when we're here, I'm in my apartment. And then when I leave my apartment, I'll go outside. But we're always in a panoramic space around ourselves. And we assume it's like continuous and unending, but we're never in another place until we're there. So when you're in here, like in your, let's say if you go to like the observatory, sometimes you'll go, they'll play like the Pink Floyd music or something, right? And it's very psychedelic to go. But what if we live in a reality where we're just living in a really big version of this, and what we're seeing outside of ourselves is just our own thoughts, our own soul, our own ideas projected onto this very large 360-degree holographic panoramic screen, right? Think about to all of the, let me just see if there's a picture on the inside that so people can see what the top looks like, right? So when it also looks very much like some of these, famous tops of buildings. That's part of, these are in the little side ones. But when you're actually in the big one, right, it looks like the sky around you. How do we know that we're not in one of those? We don't know, right? That's what it looks like when you're watching the screen up top. So my thought was just that, like, have you ever think about like a day that you were having like a wonderful day, like one of the most amazing days of your life, right? Generally, the weather will match your favorite kind of, it'll be like that the sky is blue and there's either no clouds or little puffy clouds and whatever. Now, is it you're having a good day because the sky is like that? Or is the sky like that because you are in good spirits and that is the content of your own mind? Also, if you think of like the worst day of your life, you're probably having the outside is like, either too hot or too cold or very, very windy, or maybe like a lot of chemtrails and smog or whatever, right? And then maybe like some crazy people fighting on the street, people out there doing weird stuff. If you almost, I'd say at least 80 to 100% of the time, the environment outside, right, matches your mood. And so we ask the question, is our mood affected by the environment, or are we creating the environment with our mind? So, the same kind of thing.
One of my Taoist teachers, she explained that the weather is a reflection of the inner states of mankind, which is what you're saying. And this is a woman talking from a completely, what we call it, ancestral, traditional, millennial interpretation of things. She's coming to a very same conclusion.
So look at this also. So here's another picture of what it looks like when they do this. Like, okay, so there you're looking up at the sky and these look like stars, right? Mm-hmm. But have you ever looked at like any imaging brain images, right? Let's see, brain images. Right, so look at that. Mm-hmm. One, I can find one that looks almost exactly. And this is where the synapses, this is where like when you have an idea, like a very good idea, one of these will fire. Mm-hmm. So are you telling me when we look at the sky, we're not seeing the workings of the inside of our own mind? Mm-hmm. Right? We might not be seeing all the structure of it. Maybe we're not seeing all the squirrels of the brain or whatever, right? But you're seeing that it's almost an identical picture, right? And if you look into like, my girlfriend is a cranial sacral therapist, right? And the book that I'm thinking of is at The Office, right? But she has this book on glia, which glia are like these things that are like in your brain lining, right? And they call them stars in cranial sacral therapy. And if you look at those, it looks exactly like this stuff, right? It looks like these, like you're looking at the top of an observatory and there's stars up there. But where these glia stars come together, they form this cross that looks exactly like the Templar's cross, right? The Knights Templar, right? And so I think that is part of the secret knowledge is exactly what we're talking about here, that like when you observe the night sky, when you observe the environment around you, you are literally looking at the inner wiring and workings of your own mind, right? And I guarantee you, like if you have a brain spot, like if you have some part of your brain that is not working well, when you look out in front of you, like maybe that's where you see the bum sitting on the corner, like in that same part of your mind, right? you see that, or you see like there's like some part of the environment, like maybe that's where there's an old house that's burned down or something like that. I guarantee you, like 8 times out of 10, that's gonna match.
And you
right?
know, you make me think also, you know how we have, for example, in our room, we have our clothes, etc. And we have the little whatever, something that you haven't touched in years, and it's always been there and you just keep it. And I remember also once having this like understanding that what we're actually doing is we are projecting our subconscious mind onto space, onto physical space, and like placing sort of like tokens that represent something of our mind that maybe we don't want to look at or something, but that for some reason this inner part of us, which is the more real, the more true part of our nature, is trying to put our higher self, maybe you could call it, it's without us even realizing, it's putting that thing, that trinket, whatever, so that you are always, in a certain way, you are conscious of this unconscious thing.
It's like storing it there. Like, okay, I'm not dealing with this now because I don't want to do it, but I have this totem here that holds that sort of idea or that energy or that thing. It's kind of like having a box of old stuff you don't want to throw out, but you're not using it. Mm-hmm. So it's there. And at some point you're going to have to deal with it, but having the item makes it that you cannot deal with it at this moment.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the same thing. So you have this box with things that you don't want to get rid of.
Right.
And then when you one day sit and you open it and you start, all memories and different beliefs and situations that happened come because they are like stored in that object. And then you go, oh, well, maybe this one I'm not going to throw it out because for some reason you're not ready to like let go of that energy or you're still attached to whatever it represents. And I think we do that with everything, with our clothes, with why this chair is here, why this painting, or why the door is like that. And what I think that means, or that is something that shows how you know, in Hinduism, you have the idea of Maya. So everything is, or the world we live in is an illusion, which coincides with the idea of not the holographic, the other idea that's becoming very normal now, that life is a computer
simulation
again. I always forget the word. So it's a very similar idea, and what that means is like just like in dreams, you know, in the dream you talk to somebody or you interact with a certain object, etc. You have an experience, but then you wake up and you realize that all the things and all the events that happened were actually just you. They were just your mind projecting within if you could call it like a different octave or whatever of reality. And if you now think of yourself here, that you are having a dream again, and another aspect of you, or you are actually having a dream and you're playing this avatar or this character here. And again, the same thing is happening. Different things are located all around you. And just like you could interpret a dream and draw all the symbology, etc., the meaning in different events, just in the same way, we can do the same thing here in physical life with whatever, you know. I have this glass here. Okay, it's got a kind of a weird symbol. Why did I buy this?
I like it. So it's a paisley. I like paisleys.
Right? Why did I buy this one rather than another? And I had a few of these glasses, and like 4, and 3 of them broke for no reason. But this one, with the same kind of use, it just still here. So there is something in this symbol here that is talking to me. And if I was aware enough or trusting in myself enough, I could go into the symbol and look at it and extract some understanding, some expansive property of myself. So it's like we are moving towards reconnecting with our soul and being aware of both things at the same time, in my opinion. And these little things is like pieces of our soul that are projected all around us. And it's like parts of ourselves that we are not ready to accept fully, to integrate. So if we were able to extract that symbol and like a zip file, you know, extract the information that is within the symbol, then we could become aware or awake to this small aspect of ourselves that we are still in denial of, I think.
All right, so are we ready to dig deeper into this symbol? Okay,
Yeah.
so these are paisleys, and I used to draw these like on the side of my notebook in class when I was like in elementary school and junior high. I would see them on my father's tie, or like somebody might have a pair of socks with them. But okay, I knew they were called paisley. I've never looked it up. I have no idea what the word means. I don't know anything about it. Let's look what it is.
I think they come from Middle East.
Of course they do,
Yeah.
right? So paisley refers to a specific type of pattern characterized by curved teardrop shapes known as bote or buto. Buto is the Persian word for flower. However, many have likened this alluring form to feathers, tadpoles, mangoes, and even the yin-yang symbol.
Yeah.
Okay, the origin Paisley's Bhutto motif is thought to have originated about 2,000 years ago, somewhere between modern day Iran and the Indian-Pakistan border near Kashmir. Okay, so one of the, and I don't know a lot about this, it's popping to my mind, one of like the deepest, most sort of occulted hidden forms of spirituality is called Kashmiri Shaivism, right? And so that's what I'm curious if this is some sort of a shape that goes along with that, right? Many scholars believed it was derived from ancient Zoroastrian, symbol of life and fertility, which is represented as a cypress tree combined with the floral sprite. So I know almost nothing about Zoroastrian, but Freddie Mercury, Queen, the guy from Queen, he came from a Zoroastrian family, right? And that is supposed to be a pretty interesting spiritual system. I don't know anything about it though. Paisley is most famously associated with luxurious cashmere shawls woven from fine goat hair and incredibly soft. These shawls were exchanged among Persian royalty throughout the 16th century. Kings gifted their inferior cashmere shawls as a type of robe of honor. By honoring such an expensive garment, a leader could assert his authority and bestow merit unto his officials. So he gives it to you and you feel loyal to him, but he's basically saying, dude, I fucking own you, right? Like this is a gift, but let you know that like this means I own you. While kilat shawls were made in a variety of designs, Paisley's Buto pattern became a cherished favorite.
Like, what do you call the glyphs you make in like when you're making a magic spell or whatever? The
sigils.
It's kind of like a sigil, maybe. So it has some power. You know, you're like putting some of the power of your soul, of your mind, onto a symbol outside, and then you're giving it to somebody else, and you're making a quantum entanglement or something with the other person. Absolutely,
right? So let's just see what else. This is pretty short here. So eventually Paisley cashmere shawls made their way west, right? They started giving them to Europeans as gifts. Napoleon's wife, Empress Josephine, liked them, so she started wearing them. It became fashionable, right? And in the 19th century, they started calling it Paisley, right? Because the place where they made these shawls was in Scotland called Paisley. So it went from being the Buto or the kilat to the Paisley because they made the Europeans would make these shawls in Scotland and Paisley. So, and then as it progressed, it became a basics, very fancy, like the people who liked the bohemian lifestyle liked this design, right? Including Oscar Wilde, right?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right, Bohemian Rhapsody, and he's Zoroastrian, there you go, right? But aesthetic and Art Nouveau movements, right? So some more like modern kinds of arts took onto it. And then in the 20th century, it became part of the Eastern style, like popularity, 60s and 70s, bohemian, hippies were wearing this kind of stuff, right? It was made popular by the Beatles, right? Who they liked it after they went to India and saw it. And John Lennon painted his Rolls Royce with Paisley on it. Look at that, right? So this was part of the psychedelic art, fashion, and culture. Right. So it remains a popular pattern to this day. It's because it's ornate and luxurious, right? And it has an inherently simple form of art that draws the eye, right? So it can be something fancy or something simple and everybody loves it, right?
And it also reminds me of the drawings of the fractals.
Yeah, fractals. Or the Zentangle, you know what the Zentangle or the Zen Doodle is?
No.
Right. So this is like Zen Doodle. I can't type. I'm the worst typer ever. So this is like Zen doodles, right? And these are like, this is a kind of drawing or doodling that can be like, they even have some that are the paisley, right? But you can, they are very good for like therapy or like spiritual, like development or through art and things like that.
You mentioned how in school you would draw the paisleys on the side of the notebooks.
Right.
I would spend like the entire class all of the time in high school, etc. I would always be like drawing on the side of the notebooks as well. And I would draw things like the same thing you just showed, like little, just in black ink, little symbols and little symbols within symbols and the whole page. So it's like, that would like help me remember the class. Then I would go to a test or whatever and get a relatively good grade. But many times I didn't even have to take notes. I would just like remember automatically from that.
So it's kind of like when you're making these doodles in the class, it's kind of like making a mural or a painting of what is in your mind at that time. So like you have your own mind, and then you have this information that's being sent to you, right? And it's almost like through drawing these little sigils or designs, you're creating the portal or the sigil that is allowing the information to come through. So even though you're not necessarily remembering or even paying super close attention to what the teacher is saying, right? By drawing it, you're sort of recording this symbol in your mind. So when it's time for the test, you go, you think about the drawing that you made, right, kind of thing, or that's still imprinted. Like you drew this when that information was being spoken. So you've created for yourself like a permanent portal or tunnel back to the time when the teacher was telling you that, right?
I'm using memory from the creative side of the brain rather than the rational side. You know, I think that was interesting because when they would like call my attention, like, hey, pay attention, whatever, and I had to stop, then I didn't like absorb the information in the same as powerfully, you know?
Yeah. So, but this again, back to the earlier point of our conversation, this is also from the part of the world where you're very comfortable with for your spiritual teachings, and you feel very connected to that. Like, I don't hear you speak too much about like the native spirituality of culture of your own homeland. You're much more connected to that of the Eastern philosophy, right? That is sort of the thing that really, even if you like some of the stuff that is like local to you, the thing that really opened your mind and your expansiveness was when you started like looking into some of those Eastern philosophies. So that's a natural symbol that gives you comfort, that gives you power, right? And that like opens up new worlds and new forms of perception for you. So of course you like that one.
When I'm looking down, I'm trying to find a quote here that connects to all that we're saying. And about the local spirituality or whatever, or traditions, what's kind of sad is that they were all exterminated. And when the first president of the country is the guy that killed everybody. So he killed basically all the Indians. They were called, there were different tribes here. And they were always described as like nomads, but at the same time, barbaric and whatever, like ignorant people with just barely naked, you know, like very backwards people is how they usually describe them, and how they taught about them to us in school. So we don't have a very. I hope there comes a time when whoever is still alive from those lineages brings forth a kind of renaissance of what it was that their spirituality was about.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that it's not very well known there. I wanted to take this opportunity to just look and see what Zoroastrianism is, because I've never looked at it.
It's very interesting. I know that they worship fire. They have like this fire that they keep burning forever.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah.
And you know this book, Zarathustra or whatever, from Nietzsche?
Yeah.
Zoroaster and Zarathustra is two words for the same guy.
Okay. So I just want to see a little bit about it because I don't know actually anything. So there's another name, Mazda Yasna, which is interesting because there's a car called a Mazda. So that's
Mazda is the god of this thing.
Okay.
Ahura Mazda. And it's interesting, in India, you have the gods, which are, or the semi-gods, which are the devas. And then you have like the quote unquote the demons, which are called the asuras. And here the god in Zoroastrianism is Ahura Mazda. So Ahura and Asura. So it's kind of like the demons, quote unquote, but like politically they have the good guys and the bad guys, and the bad guys are these guys from Iran and or from Pakistan, whatever, and you have the quote unquote good guys from India. So I don't know, there is something intertwined between the mythology and all of this.
Okay, so I just want to see this real quickly. So it's one of the world's oldest continuously practiced religions based on the teachings of the Iranian-speaking prophet Zoroaster, right? It has a dualistic cosmology of good and evil and an eschatology which predicts the ultimate conquest of evil by good. It exalts an uncreated and benevolent deity of wisdom, the Ahura Mazda, like you said, as its supreme being. The unique historical features of Zoroastrianism, such as its monotheism, messianism, judgment after death, heaven and hell, and free will, may have influenced other religions and philosophical systems, including Second Temple Judaism, Gnosticism. So, okay, so this really has this Christianity, Baha'i, Greek philosophy. It's weird because we think of it as this like obscure little religion off to the side, but the other religions were really coming from this.
Yeah.
And I remember this, and they act like this is something that just his father used to say to him. But in the beginning scene, did you watch the movie Bohemian Rhapsody? The early scene when he's a boy, and then at the very last scene when he goes back to his father's home, his father says good thoughts, good words, good deeds to him. But in the movie, they don't explain that this is an important saying to their religion. They just act like it's some special connection between him and his father, which makes you wonder on a certain level, like, who is he really, right? If we look at the more esoteric, like explanation of our current reality, who really was Freddie Mercury, right? And his father, right? Were these really far more important people than we're led to one? Okay, he's a pop star and his father was a humble man. But like in the modern days, were they equal to some of these characters that they're explaining here, right?
Well, when watching the movie, the understanding dropped of his last name, which he chose, Mercury, right, connected to the voice, to communication, to maybe Hermes. So there is something there, of course.
Yeah, what was his real name? It was Freddie Farouk. His name was Farouk something or other. What is Freddie Mercury's real name? Let's see. Freddie Mercury. It's his
something
first
like Farouk Botswana, something like that. No, what's the name?
Okay, his real name, Farouk Bulsara. You got it exactly.
Bulsara,
wow. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So okay, I didn't, and he's from Zanzibar. So yeah. Which is called, so he's from Stone Town in Zanzibar. So we have the masonry, right? So this is, my guess would be that masonry is a lot more closely related to Zoroastrianism than it is to what we think of as modern sort of any kind of Christianity or Judaism or even Kabbalah or whatever, that it's probably interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. Is your wife beckoning you?
Yeah, she has she guides meditations, and she has one in a few minutes, so she needs me to stop screaming.
Yes. So my girl was doing the same. So maybe this is a good time to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so. I couldn't find but I really recommend this book. It's called Merchants of Light. Okay. Okay. I had the author on the show. She's called Betty Kovacs. It's amazing, and it's talking about the awakening of the joining back of the two sides of the brain, let's say, just to put it simple, the heart and the brain. And her perspective is amazing. And I couldn't find the quotes, but it basically talked about that our soul is trying, putting in my words, our soul is trying to speak to us, and it does through synchronicities, rituals, magic, myth, art, poetry, and even outer events is one of the main things that she says. So it's exciting. So stuff happens in your life, and it's your soul trying to speak to you so that you remember it and reunite with it, because that's something that we've lost in our culture, and that's why it's so crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I like that. That's sort of a lot of what we try to capture, like with the glass bead game and stuff like that. Like, right. You know, we see all of these synchronicities, and then we see things that we think are mundane or boring or even stupid, but you can synthesize those into something meaningful if you bring yourself to how you play the game, right? So it's, yeah, for sure. Very cool.
Yeah, amazing.
Thank you, Rafa. I always enjoy talking to you.
Cool. Thank you, Emily. This has been, again, a wonderful time. Thank you, everybody that's watching this on the Patreon. Thanks for the support. Please look for Emily. If you already don't know where to find her, you can find her on her YouTube. Emily C. Moyer, also YouTube.
It's Emily Moyer on YouTube. My website is emilycmoyer.com.
And we'll be seeing you again on a next episode and a next conversation. Bye.
Cool. Bye, guys.
Bye, Emily.